Good morning. Welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we have a busy day, or busy morning, I should say, in the kitchen. These are just 5 of the 7 recipes we are going to be making for tonight's dinner. We have some really good family friends that just moved back from out of town, and I'm having them over for dinner tonight. I have been friends with her since we were freshmen in high school when we met on swim team in high school, and her favorite dessert, or one of them I should say, is baklava. I used to make baklava every Easter, and I wanted to make it this Easter, but if you watched the Easter celebration, you saw that I kind of pared back this year's Easter celebration because outstanding circumstances, and you saw that if you saw that. So I thought, since I'm inviting my friend over for dinner, why don't I make baklava and create an entire menu based around that? So we have a Greek lemon rice we're gonna make, homemade pita bread, which I'm really excited about. I've never made homemade pita bread. I was actually gonna pick this up from the store, but I didn't wanna run all the way into town, and I figured it's simple ingredients, I have everything, let's go ahead and try to make it tonight for dinner. We've got a Greek salad we're gonna make. We're gonna make Greek meatballs, the best hummus, according to this recipe. And I've read a lot of recipes, and I am very intrigued by the way that this recipe is written. And we're gonna be making tzatziki sauce, along with a carrot salad. I just washed up all these carrots, and the baklava. I washed up a bunch of produce earlier, and the first thing we're gonna do today is get our chickpeas rinsed. The recipe calls for either fresh chickpeas or canned, and I am going with a can of chickpeas for this best hummus. I wanted to find a really creamy hummus recipe, and this one states that it is a nice creamy hummus recipe. So I've got my rinsed chickpeas here. I'm gonna put this into a pot because we are actually going to be cooking these chickpeas even more. So what I need to do is cover these with a couple inches of water, and we're gonna get these on the stove to cook. To the chickpeas, we are gonna add a half a teaspoon of baking soda. So those are gonna boil, once they come to a boil, for 20 minutes, and we're gonna get those chickpeas extremely soft. So I went through and I kind of labeled my recipes what order I wanted to make these in so that I didn't have to do as much thinking. And I actually was thinking through this, and I'm gonna change up the order just a little bit because the pita bread needs to rise for some time before we can actually cook it. There's 2 rise times we need to do. So I figured while that's boiling, let's go ahead and get the pita bread going next. Now, one thing I did do yesterday to get ready for today is I actually made the baklava. So let me bring you back to yesterday, show you how I made that baklava, and then we'll come back and we'll start the pita bread. Here's what it takes to make the baklava. We need phyllo dough, butter, and nuts. A food processor makes this go a whole lot easier, and then the baking dish we're gonna bake it in. The first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and get the oven preheated, and while that's preheating, we can actually assemble the baklava that's gonna bake in the oven. Now, I need 1 pound of nuts here, and I have walnuts and hazelnuts. My favorite combination, and you can use whatever combination you like, you just want about 1 pound of nuts. My favorite combination is walnuts, pistachios, and almonds, but I don't have any almonds, and my pistachios are shelled, or they have the shell still on them, and I wasn't about to hand shell all that I would need to make this. So I decided to go ahead and use walnuts, which I love, and hazelnuts, because I had some of those in my freezer, and I thought that that would be a really good combination as well. So here I just chopped up the walnuts, and I'm gonna weigh out my hazelnuts. Now, the one trick I have found when it comes to making baklava is that the food processor makes this go a lot easier, and it's best if you chop the nuts separately than trying to throw all the nuts in the food processor at once, because they all have different consistencies and they all chop a little bit different. So if you want a consistent texture, it's best to chop them separately. So I chopped my walnuts first and then my hazelnuts, and I'm gonna mix that in with some cinnamon, and that is our filling. Super, super easy. I used to make baklava every year around Easter, and then I don't know why, but I just stopped making it, and I probably haven't made it in 11 years because I know I haven't made it since Josh and I have been together. And so it's been a very, very long time. And I was a little intimidated again to make it after being so long from not making it. But when I got into making it, I was like, oh yeah, this is so easy and it's so good. So it's totally worth making this because you can make it the day before and it gets better as it sits. And it really doesn't take much effort, especially if you're using store-bought phyllo dough like I am today. So what I'm doing is I let my phyllo dough thaw out a little bit. It still was a little on the frozen side. It's best if you can throw your phyllo dough in the refrigerator overnight to thaw, but I bought this the day that I'm making this, and so it was still a bit frozen, but I was able to unroll it enough to measure it using my baking dish, cut it in half, and then I'm going to throw a damp cloth over it. That helps prevent the dough from drying out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use a lot of butter, and we're going to just butter the bottom of our dish. Not a lot of butter on the bottom, I should say, but throughout this process, we're going to use a lot of butter. And I am using salted butter here. You can put a little bit of salt in your nuts if you want, and normally I do that, but I forgot, so I'm glad that I used the salted butter to add a little bit of saltiness to counterbalance the sweet syrup that we're going to put on the top. So I have found over the years of making this, and I had to kind of remember and remind myself as I was going through, I like to have the nuts kind of go throughout the baklava. And so I only do 2 layers of phyllo, butter, 2 layers of phyllo, butter, 2 layers of phyllo, and then I start adding nuts every single layer after that. So I do have a little base of 6 sheets of phyllo dough buttered between every 2 sheets as my base. And then I want nuts just scattered throughout the entire thing, and I just like the way the texture of that comes out. So once I've got my base, then I will just take a few tablespoons of my nuts. I don't really measure anything when it comes to this. I just kind of cover the bottom, and once it's covered, and then I'm going to put 2 more sheets of phyllo dough, and then once that's covered, I will put 2 more sheets of phyllo dough, and then once that's covered, 2 more sheets of phyllo dough, and I continue to butter each time I add the phyllo dough. One day I would love to try to make phyllo dough from scratch, but today was not the day. We make a ton of other recipes, and this dinner that I make is probably one of the best dinners I have made in a long time. Every single recipe turned out so incredibly well, and all the flavors together with all the recipes just made a very well-rounded dinner, and it's making me want to make Mediterranean more and more and more because it was just all so good. So the last thing I'm going to do is end with a couple sheets of phyllo dough and then put the rest of my butter on the top, and then there is basically the baklava. But there is one thing you want to do before you actually bake it, and that is to cut it into pieces. Now, I have never been able to figure out how to get it into those quintessential kind of rectangle, I don't know what shape they are, but they're kind of like a diamond shape. And I just cut them into squares, but I know that that is not super traditional. That is just what's easy and easy for me. And you want to bake this before you put it in the oven, because once you bake it, the phyllo dough is going to get super dry and crackery, and you're not going to be able to cut it into nice squares if you cut it after it comes out of the oven. So once you've cut the shapes you want, you can kind of cut them into whatever shapes you want. I always like little squares. We're going to pop this into the oven, and we're going to let this bake for about 50 minutes. And while that's baking, we're going to make our syrup, which the syrup is sugar and water. We're going to put this on the stove until the sugar dissolves, and then we're going to add honey. Let that dissolve, and then we will end up adding a little bit of vanilla. Now you can add rose water to this or orange blossom flavoring, whatever you like. I just like just simple cinnamon in the nut portion and then a little vanilla in the honey portion. And we're going to let this simmer until it reduces down by about half. And once it's done that, we'll just turn the heat off and we'll let that sit until our baklava comes out of the oven. You can see how nice and toasty and golden and beautiful this is. We're going to take this out of the oven, and while it's still piping hot, we're going to pour our syrup over the top. And it actually, because the baklava is so hot, the syrup starts to bubble again and it soaks into the pastry and it becomes crunchy and sticky and just so good. And now that I've made this again, I will be making it more because it's so easy and so delicious. So I do like to take them out of the baking dish and I put them in some muffin tin liners so that they're easier to eat and they're easier to pick up. But I'm just going to get these, once they cooled in these containers, I cover it and then they'll be ready for us on the day of the dinner. For the pita recipe, I am gonna double this because one recipe makes 8 pitas, and if these turn out any way that I think they will, as long as we can get them to turn out, I know that we will need more than just 8 pitas for 6 people. So for a double recipe, I'm gonna start with 2 cups of water and 4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and we're gonna create what the recipe calls a sponge. So we're gonna mix that together with 2 teaspoons of sugar, and here's the key ingredient, 1 cup of flour. So they call this the sponge. They don't say to do this part, but I am gonna mix the yeast in with the water just a little bit so that each granule is hydrated. And I'm gonna let that sit for maybe 30 seconds or so before I add the flour. Now I'm gonna add my flour and I'm gonna mix this together. That flour is just gonna give the yeast a little bit of food to get activated. Now I'm gonna cover this for 15 minutes. While that's sitting, we can go ahead and work on 2 of our salads that we're gonna be making to go along with this dinner. All these recipes can really be made a little bit early in the day. So it's pretty early in the morning still, and I wanna get going on this so that I can enjoy the sunshine outside because it is supposed to be an absolutely glorious day today, and we're gonna actually be grilling the meat on the grill. The original recipe says to cook it on the stove, but I think we can make it on the grill and it's gonna taste really delicious, and I'm excited for these 2 fresh salads. So I'm gonna start with 2 pints of cherry tomatoes in this dish, and we'll start with making the Greek salad. I've got 1 green bell pepper here. And I wanna cut these bell peppers really thinly. Next, I'm gonna cut an English cucumber. The next thing I'm gonna do is slice this really small red onion very thinly. My favorite part of a Greek salad is the cheese. I have an 8-ounce block of feta here. I only need 4 ounces for this recipe. I might put more of it in it after I see what it looks like, but I bought a block of feta cheese, and I'm gonna chop this up and put chunks of feta in this salad. Oh my goodness, I can already smell it and it smells so good. Now, a lot of times Greek salads will have huge chunks of feta. I don't like huge chunks, but I do like chunks in a Greek salad instead of the crumbles. So I have probably about 1/8 of an inch cube on this feta. You know, I think it could use that whole block. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this whole block into that salad. Maybe I'll cut it this way first. I'm gonna go ahead and shred up my cucumber for the tzatziki sauce since I have the cucumber out. This is the bowl that I'm gonna make the tzatziki sauce in. I tried to shred it right into that bowl and it did not work, so I'm just gonna shred it onto the cutting board and then we'll transfer it into the bowl. Tzatziki sauce is one of my favorite things to have made up all summer long with the cucumbers that are coming in from out of the garden. If you plant one cucumber plant or two, you will be inundated with cucumbers. And this is one of our favorite ways to enjoy cucumber because we love to grill all summer long, and tzatziki sauce really goes on a lot of just delicious grilled meats. So I'm gonna take this over to the sink and I'm gonna put it in my sieve and I'm just going to press some of that excess cucumber water out of the cucumbers. Now we have most of our components done for our Greek salad. We have started our tzatziki sauce. I just took a peek at this sponge and look at that. I've never seen anything like that before. So now we're going to go ahead and mix up the rest of our pita bread so that it can do its actual first bulk rise while we finish up or continue to work on the salads and our hummus. You can see that this is boiling, so I've set a timer for 20 minutes. To our sponge, we are going to add 5 cups of all-purpose flour, and it says to reserve a half a cup for the kneading process and that it's going to be a sticky dough. So that was 2, 3, 4, and I'll do a half. Now I'm going to add my salt. It says to add anywhere from 2 to 4 teaspoons of salt. I went ahead and added 3. And the last ingredient in this simple bread recipe is going to be a 1/4 cup of a good quality olive oil. And remember, I am doubling this recipe. And then we're going to go ahead and mix this together. Look how beautiful that is with the sponge on the outside. And it does say this is going to be pretty sticky. So a Danish dough whisk is kind of the perfect thing for this.
So you said you were doubling.
Josh just came in here and said it smells really good in here, which is a pretty good sign because we don't have that much cooking yet. So I'm going to now turn this dough out onto my silicone mat, and it's still pretty sticky, and that's what the recipe said it would be. I'm gonna pull out just a little bit of flour here, and this is my half a cup that I can use. I'm going to make myself not use any more than that, but I'm gonna try to use as little as possible. But by having it in this cup, then I know that that's how much I can use. So the recipe says we need to knead this for a good 5 minutes until a smooth ball forms. And you could probably do this in your KitchenAid if you have one, or your mixer of whatever kind you have, but it said to do it by hand, and I really like working with dough by hand. So I'm gonna sit here and just go ahead and knead this for a good 5 minutes. So this dough is feeling really soft and beautiful at this point. I still have this much flour in my measuring spoon. So what we need to do now is actually cover this and let it rest for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna come back to it. But one thing I wanna do now is get the beginning of this Greek salad into the fridge. We still need to make a dressing for it, and I'll do that in just a minute. But I wanna get this cucumbers and all these nice yummy vegetables into the fridge to chill. One thing I did not put in this salad that's very traditional for a Greek salad is Guatemala olives, and that's because I'm not a huge fan of them and Josh is not a huge fan of them, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave them out. But of course, if you like them, put them in your salad. I'm gonna go pop this in the garage fridge. So now that that is in the fridge, it is time to go ahead and drain our chickpeas. I do need to look at this recipe one more time. It says to go ahead and drain them, and you'll notice that the skins have come off the chickpeas. Let me see if I can get a spoon to show you. Right here, those are the skins, and the recipe says I don't need to separate the skins from the chickpeas. But what I do need to do is strain them I probably could have doubled this recipe and run it under cold water for at least 30 seconds. So to make the hummus, I'm gonna make it in the food processor. It said you can use a blender or a food processor, and I have this out. And what we're supposed to do first is actually mix together the garlic, which I have some pre-chopped frozen garlic. I took a few pucks out because I know I'm gonna use that in a few different recipes today. And then I have some fresh lemon juice. I pulled this out of the freezer last night, knowing that I would be using it for a lot of recipes today. And then to that, we're supposed to add our salt and a half a cup of tahini, which is ground sesame paste. So it's like peanut butter, but made with sesame seeds instead of peanuts. And then we're gonna blend this together until really smooth. To this, we're gonna add our chickpeas that we cooked, a half a teaspoon of cumin, 2 tablespoons of ice water, plus maybe more. So we're gonna start with 2. So we need to scrape the sides of the food processor and then see if we need to add any more water. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more because this is gonna be served tonight with dinner and I want it to be smooth as it sits in the fridge. Okay, that looks very, very smooth. We most definitely need to give it a taste test. Look how smooth that is. Wow. That is some pretty darn good hummus. I have tried making hummus before and it's never come out this creamy. Josh and I, a couple weeks ago, had the chance to go out on a date night, and there's this Mediterranean restaurant in Portland called Tusk, and we had their hummus, and it was the best hummus I've ever had. And it was this beautiful, silky texture like this. And that is what inspired me to try to find a hummus recipe that's so smooth like this, because it was so good. And I think I may have just found it. I'm trying to think if it needs any more salt or lemon or garlic. I don't think so. Maybe a pinch more salt. I'm telling you, friend, I think cooking those chickpeas until they're so soft is the key to a really smooth hummus. I'm already out of spoons, so I'm gonna use a fork. The hummus I've made in the past has always been a little bit on the dry side, and I just found my go-to hummus recipe. So now what we're gonna do is get this into our serving dish. Look how creamy that hummus is. That is so yummy. I think this is gonna firm up a little bit in the fridge. That's why I wanted it to be a little bit on the smoother side to start, so that when we put our decorations on the top, like our olive oil and things, it will be the correct consistency. I am gonna top this with some olive oil and paprika or sumac before I serve. But for now, I'm just gonna put some swirls in it, cover it, and pop this in the fridge. I have to tell you, this has me really, really excited for dinner tonight. Our pita bread is ready for the final knead. This is the first time I've ever seen a recipe call for more than one knead. And it said that the dough would be a little bit sticky, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of flour there. And now I'm gonna knead it for a few minutes, it says. It definitely feels a lot different after sitting for 10 minutes. I have now been kneading this for a few minutes. It feels absolutely beautiful. So what we're gonna do is actually get our bowl back out that we started making the dough with. I'm gonna be putting a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the bowl. I'm gonna take my dough ball, roll it around in that oil, turn it over, cover it, and now we're gonna let this rest for 1 hour. I want to avoid having a huge mess to clean up at the end of this cooking day. So what I'm gonna do is try to clean up as I go, get my dishwasher filled as dirty dishes arise. And the next thing I think I'm gonna go ahead and make is I'm going to chop all the fresh herbs so that we can make our salad and our main protein. Because both of the salad, the main protein, and to finish our tzatziki sauce, we need a ton of fresh herbs. I have 4 different fresh herbs here on my cutting board. The first one is mint. I just went ahead and took off all the leaves off the mint, and I need this for 2 recipes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my 3 bowls out because I need fresh herbs for our carrot salad, our tzatziki sauce, and for our beef. So what I need to do is grab a bowl and a little container because we also need fresh herbs for our rice as well. So we've got our beef bowl, our rice, our tzatziki, and our carrot salad. So the first thing I'm gonna go ahead and chop up is the mint. And I love mint, fresh mint in savory dishes. I love growing mint. Mint grows like a weed around here, and I can use it all summer long in so many dishes. One of the reasons I love cooking Mediterranean food in the summer is because a lot of these fresh herbs are growing like crazy in the garden. Not yet though, because it's too early in the season so far. So I'm gonna put a pinch of mint in for my tzatziki sauce, a pinch for my carrot salad, none for the rice, and the majority of it is going to go in the meatballs. So all of this is gonna go into the meatballs. Next, I've got fresh dill. Fresh dill is one of my favorite fresh herbs to work with. I am gonna go ahead and just take off the majority of the fronds. I'll give the stems to my chickens and they'll be super happy for enjoying that. I have a little compost bowl over here that I'm putting the stems into, or I should call it the chicken bowl. For the rice, and I think I'm gonna top our hummus with some of this dill as well. I wanna keep the fronds a little bit on the bigger side so that they show up really pretty on the hummus and in the rice. So I'm just gonna take a second and kind of pick each leaf off. That part we can still chop up. But I'm gonna use this for garnish and for flavor for some of our recipes. So this here is going to be for our rice and for our hummus. I'm gonna go ahead and chop the rest of this dill up. And some of this is going to go into our carrot salad, and then some of it's gonna go into our tzatziki. So now I have a bunch of fresh parsley and a bunch of fresh cilantro. I'm gonna go ahead and take just the big stems off, but if there's a little bit of the little stems, I don't mind that in it. I'm gonna go ahead and chop these together. I'm gonna take some of this and put this into our carrot salad, a good amount, and put it into our tzatziki. And then the rest of this, I'm gonna go ahead and get into our meatballs. This recipe didn't actually call for cilantro and parsley in the meatballs, but I think that will be delicious, so I'm gonna go ahead and add it since I have it. So now, just like that, we have prepped quite a few herbs for our 4 different recipes. Our tzatziki is gonna come together really easy, especially because I have some pre-prepped garlic chopped. Our lemon juice is already squeezed. This is fresh lemon juice. We're gonna add a little bit of salt, some fresh pepper, and then a whole bunch of Greek yogurt. And we're gonna mix this together. Oh my goodness, it smells so good already in here. I make this just a slightly different every time I make it because I just use whatever kind of herbs I have on hand. And I love when I have fresh dill, cilantro, and mint. So now we have another one of our dishes done. This is only gonna taste better and better as it sits in the fridge. So I'm just gonna get a lid on this and this will be ready to serve with dinner. I wanna go ahead and make the salad dressing for the carrot salad just in the bowl that we're going to serve our salad in. So I have some fresh lemon juice. I'm gonna start at the bottom here. This is one of those salads where it's okay if it sits for a little bit and kind of marinates because we're using a crunchy carrot. That's pepper, salt, fresh garlic, paprika, cumin, coriander, tahini, a drizzling of honey, not too much because the carrots have some sweetness to them, but we want to balance out the earthiness of the tahini. I just had to run downstairs to get some more olive oil to finish out this dressing, and I forgot that I have sumac. And the hummus said you could sprinkle sumac on the top or paprika. I forgot that I had the sumac, so I was gonna do paprika. And I think this would be so good in this salad. It's kind of berry smelling. I'm gonna taste it. I've never even tasted it before that I know of. Wow, that has almost a citrusy flavor. That's good. This is gonna be good on carrots. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some sumac, maybe about a half a teaspoon. And then I had to go get some more olive oil. I wanna use a high quality olive oil with this because we're really gonna be able to taste it. So while I drizzle in the olive oil, I'm gonna go ahead and take a whisk and whisk all this together. So now I'm gonna give this a taste test and see if I need to adjust the seasonings at all. Ooh, that is really good. It's very citrusy. The sumac is playing really well with the lemon. I think it needs a little bit more sweetness to balance the flavor. So I'm gonna put maybe about, I don't know, another couple teaspoons of honey in there. I'm running out of tasting spoons. Oh, that is perfect. I would say if I was having this on its own without the carrots, like in a lettuce salad, I maybe add just a touch more honey, but I know the carrots are gonna add quite a bit of sweetness and it's just gonna be really delicious. So I'm kind of adapting this recipe. I'm totally making up this salad dressing, but I saw this technique where you take your carrots and you peel them like this, and that's how you have them in your salad instead of shredding them. So I just realized this is probably more dressing than I need. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer that dressing into a little bowl so that I can control how much dressing is gonna end up in my final salad. But when I make carrot salads, I usually shred them in the food processor, and then I use a honey Dijon mustard type dressing, not one with tahini and all these other really good flavors. I think this is gonna be so good. But I saw a recipe to make a carrot salad where you use your vegetable peeler, like, that's not a vegetable peeler, that's a whisk, like this, and that is how you have your salad with these big, beautiful carrot peels. And so that's what I thought I would do for this dinner. If I can keep them in the bowl. So I'm gonna take a minute and peel all these carrots until I have them in my bowl. These carrots that I got at the store were actually already peeled, so I'm technically not peeling them. I'm just slicing them very, very thinly.
This This is one of the best salads I've ever made in my entire life. The texture of these ribbons in the salad held up so well. They were crunchy and delicious, and the dressing just made this a perfect side for this dinner. And I would, though, in the future use larger carrots when I do this. These were really small carrots I got that were pre-sliced, and they were kind of more intended for roasting. And I was considering doing a roasted carrot side with a yogurt sauce on the bottom, but I'm really glad I decided to do this instead. But in the future, I would use larger carrots because it would be a lot easier to make this salad using a larger carrot.
This will definitely make your hand cramp if you use these little carrots like I have. I would highly recommend using bigger ones. This is just all I have. And here's some purple carrots I'm going to put in there for color. So there is our carrots. So to the carrots, we will put this dressing, but I'm not going to put that on quite yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just get the lid on this. Tuck this in the corner here. Cover this, and I'm going to pop this in the fridge, and I'll pull this out when it's dinner. I almost forgot, these are the pistachios I prepped yesterday. Those are going to go on that to add a crunchier element. So I'm just going to stick that on there, and there we have one of our other sides. I just put that prepped salad into the fridge, and now what I figured would be good to do is kind of reevaluate and figure out what we need to do next. I did go ahead and preheat the oven to make the pita, because the pita has now risen and it's doubled in size. And I'm double checking my recipe. I have the oven preheated to 475 degrees with a cast iron in there. Okay, so Greek salad is not quite done, so I can't check that because we still need to make the salad dressing. Baklava is done, hummus is done. I don't even have carrot salad on here. This was my list. So carrot salad is done, table is set, pita is half done, tzatziki sauce is done. I didn't put away any of the spices. I took a second to reset the kitchen, but we're gonna be using a lot of the same spices for the meat, and I didn't want to put them away and have to get them back out. But I think what I'm gonna do now is do the pita next before we start dealing with the meat. Here is what the bread is looking like. So absolutely beautiful. So it has risen and it's ready to be shaped. I'm gonna shape the bread on this side of the kitchen because I have this oven preheated and we're gonna be making our pitas in this oven. So I grabbed my rolling pin, some flour. I also did not wash off this silicone mat yet because I knew we would need it again. I'm gonna get this laid out. Once the pita is cooked, I need to put it in a bowl. So I've got a bowl, you could use any kind of bowl. And I've got 2 cloths here because we're gonna put our pita in here. And I'm gonna reread this one more time to make sure I understand what I need to be doing. So what we need to do is deflate the dough and place the dough on a clean work surface. Divide the dough into 8 equal pieces. I'm doubling this, so we're gonna do 16. Shape it into balls, cover with a towel, and let sit for 10 minutes. It says this recipe can make anywhere from 7 to 8. So it just depends on if we want bigger pitas or smaller pitas. Deflate the dough. I washed off, or I thought I did. I thought I hand washed my bench scraper, but I can't find it. So I'm just gonna use a butter knife to divide the dough in half because it'll be easier to divide this into 8 pieces instead of 16. When Josh and I went on our date night to that Mediterranean restaurant in Portland, they had homemade bread, and I'm sure it was some kind of sourdough, but it was so good. We ended up getting 3 of them to share between us because it was so good. So now I've got 4 equal pieces. I'm gonna divide each one of these into 4. So every time you work with a dough, you are developing gluten when you need it. And so that's why I'm sure it wants us to shape this into balls and then let it rest so that the gluten can relax again before we actually go to roll out our pitas. Sourdough might be something I learn in the future, but for now, I'm totally content using yeast from the store to make really yummy homemade breads. So I'm just gonna shape these into balls just like I would a roll, and I can feel the gluten really developing when I do this. It's a pretty firm ball, so if I was to try to roll that flat, I don't think it would want to do that. You can see they're just bouncing right back. That's because there's gluten development in the process of me shaping these. Okay, so here are our 16 pieces of dough, and I'm gonna go ahead and cover this, and we're gonna let this rest for 10 minutes. While we're waiting for the bread to rest, I'm gonna go ahead and start preparing some components of our meatballs. So I've got some breadcrumbs here, and we are going to put this in a bowl, and we are going to pour milk over the top and let this sit for a few minutes while we prepare some other things. I have my herbs at the bottom of this bowl with 3 pounds of beef. Now I'm gonna add a lot of garlic to this. I do need to dice 1 onion. I happen to have a red one. My onions are from last year's garden, and so I am starting to see a little bit of sprouting in the onions, which is not a big deal. They're still fully edible, but I do want to remove that. So I'm just going to remove that and then slice it really finely. So I found my bench scraper, and I'm going to use that to get all these onions in with our meat. I'm going to add 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. I'm going to add a tablespoon of ground coriander. We're going to add some cumin, pepper, salt, lemon juice, lemon zest. This is some freeze-dried lemon zest that I zested from when I processed all the lemons to make this juice, and it turned out so wonderful. I'm going to add some oregano. Cinnamon. And the final spice we're going to add is some fresh nutmeg, which I have never added to a savory meat dish before. I've added it to savory Italian dishes like white sauces and things like that, but never to a meat, and I think this is going to be really good. I love when recipes call for cinnamon in savory dishes, so I think I'm going to like the nutmeg, but I'm not putting a lot of it in there. I'm going to get that in there. And then we're going to add our milk and breadcrumb mixture, and you can see how that has just totally rehydrated with the milk. And then it is now time to start rolling out our pitas. So I don't want to get in there and start mixing this up right now. So I'm just going to pop this in the fridge, and then we'll come back to this. I think I'm gonna let these rest a little bit more before we roll them out. I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and make our final salad dressing, the salad dressing for the Greek salad, so that I can put all the spices and things away, and then I can focus just on preparing the meat, cooking the pita, and then bringing all of this whole entire dinner together. I do have my dishwasher started. It is not even 1 o'clock right now, and so I want to try to get this kitchen clean, and I wanna have a little bit of time just to kind of relax before my guests come and I pull this whole dinner together. One way I'll be able to relax a little bit if I can get the last salad dressing made. So in here, I've got some garlic. Normally these are twice the size. These are my frozen garlic pucks, but I cut this one in half because for the salad dressing, I don't need a whole one. To that, I'm gonna add some fresh lemon juice, some red wine vinegar, black pepper, oregano, just a little bit of mustard, salt, and a high quality olive oil. I love a simple Greek dressing like this. Now I'm gonna put the lid on it, shake it. And this is going to be delicious on our cucumber and feta and tomatoes that I will put this on a little bit later today. I don't want to put it on that yet because I don't want my cucumbers to wilt too much. As soon as my friends come over, I'll probably do it then so that it does sit just a little bit and marinate a little bit, but I don't want to do it now because that'll be too soft. So this is what I need to take care of, all of this stuff, and then we're going to make our pita bread, which I am excited about, but I'm also a little nervous because I have never cooked bread in the oven on a cast iron like this before, and it only cooks in 2 to 3 minutes on each side. I'm a little nervous about getting it fully cooked on the outside and not too dark before the inside is fully cooked, so that it's not like crunchy on the outside and then doughy on the inside. So at least we have 16 we can practice with. So let me get all this cleaned up. It was so nice having all this fresh lemon juice to work with today, so I didn't have to juice a bunch of lemons. Let me go ahead, I can just use my cutting board to carry all these spices over. I almost forgot about the rice dish, and we are gonna make the rice in the Instant Pot, so it's gonna come together really quickly. The recipe is written, it's called Greek lemon rice, to do it on the stove, but I think I'm gonna be able to adapt it pretty easy to do it in the Instant Pot. And I don't have that much experience cooking rice on the stove, and so I'm going to use the help of the Instant Pot to make the rice salad. Or it's not a salad, just the rice side dish. So I got the dressing made. The meatballs just need to be shaped, and then basically I need to stop stalling and I need to start focusing on shaping. Yeah, I'm glad I let these rest a little bit longer because now they're really soft and just super tender. So what I'm gonna do is kind of move these balls of dough along the perimeter so that I've got a good work surface here to work with. My oven is preheated, my kitchen is clean. That's one thing I wanted to kind of get done so that I could think a little bit better. I can typically think a little better in my kitchen when I'm not working around a mess. So I just put a little flour down, and we need to roll this, it says, to 8 inches or so wide, and I do have a grid on here for that. Let's pull up the recipe again. Using a floured rolling pin, roll one of the pieces into a circle about 8 to 9 inches wide. It helps to lift and turn the dough frequently as you roll so that the dough doesn't stick to your counter too much. If the dough starts to stick, use flour. And then if the dough starts to spring back, set it aside and let it rest for a few minutes. So I'm glad that I let this rest for more than the 10 minutes so that it'd be easier to work with. You want to have 2 pieces of dough rolled out and ready to go into the oven before you start cooking them, so you can kind of get an assembly line going, it says. And we have 2 options for baking the pita. To bake the pita in the oven, heat the oven to 475 with a cast iron in there. We're gonna cook it on 2 minutes on one side, and then using a pair of tongs, which I need to get out, carefully turn pita over and cook for another minute, and then place in a clean towel, which is what we have here. Or I think we could do it on the stove. Cook pita on the stove top. I am more comfortable cooking it in the oven because I think I'm gonna get a little bit better of a consistent cook on it that way. And if all goes according to plan, it should puff up in the oven. So if I'm gonna get this to 8 inches, it's gonna be way thinner than 1/4 of an inch. Right now, this is at 6 inches. Okay, I'm gonna roll out another one. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just roll a couple more out.
I can't wait for you to see how well these turned out. It is mind-blowing how many different things you can make with just simple ingredients: flour, salt, water, yeast, a little bit of oil, and those simple ingredients in different ratios and different cooking techniques can create so many different delicious breads. I am so glad that I decided not to buy pitas and that I went ahead and I tried to attempt to make them myself because they are fantastic.
I'm only gonna be able to cook one of these at a time because of how big my cast iron or little my cast iron is. I'm assuming I'm supposed to close the oven, and I'm gonna set my timer for 2 minutes. Hey Siri, set timer for 2 minutes. And if all goes well, this should start to puff up. So while that's cooking, that should give me time to roll out another one. I think this is what they mean by working in assembly. Once you kind of get going, you should be able to start kind of working the dough and shaping it while they're in the oven cooking. The nice thing is I have my timer set, so I don't have to worry so, oh my goodness, look at that. Okay, let's see if we can flip that. We have 24 seconds left. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. So I'm gonna set the timer for 1 more minute. To say I was shocked when I turned around to saw that puff up like that, that's crazy. So we're gonna have to watch that next one actually puff. For some reason, I did not think that was actually going to happen. I did not have faith that these pitas were going to puff up like that. I don't know why. I think it's because it's crazy to me that this is just simply flour, salt, water, oil, and you have those same ingredients in so many recipes. You just treat it a little different, whether you're making tortillas or pizza dough or sandwich bread. I guess there's a little bit of sugar in there too. That's our timer. And they can react so differently. Oh my goodness, that is our pita bread. Can't even believe that. So now we're gonna put that in our towel. Let that cook, and we're gonna see if that one puffs up too. Now I'm wondering maybe it's exactly how I rolled it and I need to roll it the same way. Hey Siri, set timer for 2 minutes. Feels fully cooked. I think I cooked that first one a little too much. It's still popping up right here. I want them to be soft. I don't want them to be cracker-like. And that's why I think I cooked that first one Oh yeah, that's soft. No, that's soft, that's nice. Okay, close that. That's telling me to go ahead and flip it, which I already did. Oh yeah, now it's fully puffed. I think it's done. Wow. That's crazy.
The key, I think, just like when making tortillas, is getting those hot pitas into the towel so that the steam and the heat can continue to soften them and have a nice tender pita, because these were still incredibly tender when we went to eat them at dinner, probably about 4 or 5 hours after I made them. And they were just so incredible. So easy too.
I only have 4 more to cook, so while these have been cooking, I have been working on getting the rice recipe put together. So I'm gonna bring you over and we're gonna start the rice. I think I've got a good eye on these. I have the light on so I can see when they puff up, and so we can move on to getting the rice started. I pulled out my Instant Pot here, and I'm gonna put this on the saute mode. And we are gonna saute the rice first and get it nice and toasty. So the first thing I need to happen is I need my butter to melt so we can toast up our rice. I'm not gonna be cooking this rice yet. I'm gonna wait until my friends get here before I do that. So I just have some of the other ingredients. I have the broth out we're gonna cook our rice with. We've got salt I'll put on right now, and our lemon juice and lemon zest that we will be putting on once we actually go to cook the rice. All we're gonna do right now is toast the rice. I'll be able to do that and keep an eye on this pita. So this one has puffed up. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a flip. Can you see it? It's puffing up right now. That's so awesome. Close that, give that another minute, and we've got a whole stack of pita breads right here. I've just put a towel over these just so that they don't dry out. I also got out a cookie sheet with parchment paper, because once the pita is done and we toast our rice, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up our meatball mixture and get that shaped onto this cookie sheet. So I just broke a little hole on that one. There's been about 3 where I've punctured the pita, and I think that's okay. I think it was because some of them kind of dried out because I rolled them all out in advance. I think it is best, from my very limited experience, to only have a couple rolled out at a time. Beautiful. So here we go. Ooh, it's hot.
That looks good.
It's fully cooked on the inside.
Oh, wow.
There's a whole pocket. Look at that.
The pocket's perfect.
Thanks. Mmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, it tastes exactly like you'd expect.
But better.
It's nice and crispy.
My butter is melted, and I'm gonna measure out 3 cups of basmati rice. Oops. That's 1, 2, and 3. And we're gonna toast this with some salt and a little bit of turmeric for color and flavor. Oh, it smells good already, the butter and the turmeric. I only have 1 more pita to cook, and I'm starting to get some color on this rice, but it is not quite there. So I'm gonna let it continue to toast. So you can see how on some of the rice kernels, there's nice little toasty bits. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. And closer to when my friends are supposed to be here, I will go ahead and add the liquids and actually cook the rice. I just mixed up our meat, so now I'm going to make it into a shape that I want to grill it. And I'm thinking I want them a little bit skinny, so that if you want to put them in pita, they would be really good in pita. So just like that.
The original recipe that I am following for this called to cook these on the stove, I thought that it would be kind of less messy and it would be really good to get that grill flavor by just cooking them on the grill. So I'm not rolling them into meatballs because I didn't think that those would fit and cook very well on the grill. That's why I'm changing the shape of them a little bit. But if you follow the recipe as written, you would be rolling these into balls and then cooking them on the stove. You could also cook them in the oven too if you want. But again, I end up cooking them on the grill just because I love the flavor that the grill imparts. Josh and I, for the first 6 years or 7 years of our marriage, we did not have a grill because other things always took priority, and so we never bought one. But we got one right when we moved into this house, and I use it on a weekly basis. I love grilling rain, snow, sleet, shine. It is one of my favorite cooking gadgets. I like that it keeps kind of the mess outside. I like the flavor it imparts, and I just find it to be easy and delicious. So that's what we're doing. And I'm just shaping these. I did end up getting 2 layers worth, and so I just put a piece of parchment paper between the two, and then I end up wrapping these, popping these in the fridge until we're ready to cook them.
It is 1:25 right now, and we got all the food and everything prepped for tonight. I wanted to show you kind of everything that is laid out. First off, we got the meat done. So I might cook this in the oven. I might cook it on the grill, probably on the grill. It is so beautiful outside, but I've been kind of going back and forth as I was making the meat. We have our rice here with our broth and our lemon juice, and that's ready to go. And then our herbs to go on top of that are in the refrigerator, ready to go. We got our pita done. Now we are missing a few already. 2 of them have already found their way out of the bowl, but that will be still plenty for dinner tonight. Our carrot salad with our dressing and our pistachios for crunch. Our Greek salad with our dressing, our baklava, which is beautiful and delicious. It has already been dug into. Tzatziki sauce, hummus, which I am going to top with olive oil and sumac probably because that was really good. I have my dishwasher started and it has 36 minutes left. I have dishes in the sink which need to be washed, but I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get my dishwasher unloaded when it's ready and then load up the dishes in the dishwasher and we are ready to go. I have the table set, except I can't put silverware on the table because I've gone through all of the silverware in my house, so they are in the dishwasher. And I need to put water on the table. And it just needs a matter of bringing this whole dinner party together, dressing the salad, cooking the meat, and enjoying time with friends that just moved back from out of town. And I'm really excited to have them here. It's gonna be super laid back and chill. I think we're gonna hang out outside. What I'm gonna go do now is go relax for a few hours. I want to go do some garden planning because tomorrow I plan to spend all day in the garden. And I wanna spend time outside because it is beautiful. It is in the low 70s today. And then it's supposed to get cooler, which is perfect. I wanna go enjoy the sun, planning and just soaking up the sun. And it's supposed to be cooler the next few days, and so I'll actually be working in the garden when it's not quite so hot. And I can actually transplant a bunch of things from the grow room into the garden, and it's best to do that not on a 70-degree day, but a nice, cool, overcast day is best. So the timing on all of this is working out perfect. I'm gonna pop all of these back in the refrigerator, and then we will cook up this feast come later tonight.
My friends are over, and so now I'm gonna go ahead and pull this dinner together. It was so nice that I was able to get some of it done the day before and the majority of it done the morning of, so that I was able to have a clean kitchen, and it was gonna be just a few minutes to pull the last few things together. And food has always kind of been my love language. So now that my friend is back in town, I'm so excited that I can have her over and her family over for dinners. So my friend that's over, we met in high school in swim team, and we did swim team all 4 years. We worked together, we were lifeguards together in the summer and swim instructors. And then she went off after high school to the Navy, and I would send her care packages in the Navy. I would make homemade Rice Krispies and cookies. And when she was on deployment, I would send her yummy treats. And then they moved back and she got married. And when I was in college, I would go to her house with her and her husband and her daughter, and I would make them dinner as a way to decompress. Now, it wasn't this elaborate back when I was in college. One of our go-to things we would make in college was homemade Crunchwrap Supremes. And if you've never made a homemade Crunchwrap Supreme, they are delicious. But we would make all sorts of different things, but maybe not this to this extent. But it's been fun as I have grown in my cooking abilities to kind of make more things from scratch and learning how to kind of expand my cooking repertoire. And this dinner, like I said earlier at the beginning, this is one of the best dinners I think I've ever had. This carrot salad was mind-blowing. The grilled beef with the two different sauces, the tzatziki sauce and the hummus, and the pita bread. Oh, and the rice, friend, the rice was so yummy. It turned out fluffy and delicious. It was perfect in the Instant Pot. And we just all sat for hours and enjoyed this meal. I also made up some lemonade from the lemonade concentrate we made up recently. It's a honey lemonade concentrate. So I got that in a pitcher to enjoy, and it was a fantastic dinner. So friend, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I will link these recipes down below. If you want to try to make any of them yourself, I would highly recommend it. They were delicious. I will pop a couple other videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time.